back to our channel. So in today's session we'll discuss about the basic terminology in a web development. So if anyone wants to learn this web development, so this session will be very useful because here I'll cover all the basic terminologies. Minimum you have to learn before starting the web development. So let's start our session. So basic terminology in web development. So web development means designing the web pages, right? Designing the web pages or designing the websites. So in order to design a websites or designing web pages, so what are the basic basic terminologies we should have a knowledge, right? So let's start. The first one is a web page. Web page. So what is this web page, right? So this web page is a document. Which will be displayed in browser. So this is a document. So if you open a website, so that website will be opened through the browser itself. So we are using some web browser in order to browse the web pages, right? That means in order to view the web pages. So that means whatever the document we are seeing on the browser, that we call it as a web page. Web page. Next, web browser. So here we got the term browser. Now what is a web browser? So browser is an application which can access the web pages in the internet. So internet means so connectivity of systems, right? So across the globe. So if you want to interact with any other computer around the globe, so we need one application to interact with, right? So such type of application we call it as a web browser. So application to access data from internet. Simple. So in order to browse the data from internet, we need one application. That application is a browser, and whatever the content we are watching on the web browser, that we call it as a web page. Next, website. So this website is nothing but a collection of web pages. Okay, it's a collection of web pages. Right? We know a lot of websites, right? So that's nothing but a collection of web pages linking with one another. Alright? Next, web server. So this is also a computer, not an additional device, right? So this is also a computer where these websites will be available, right? With a high-end configuration. So it is a computer with high-end configuration which stores websites, that means web pages. So websites, database, etc. Everything, files, etc. will be available in the web server, so that we will interact or we can access the data from the web server. So web server is a high-end configuration. And here the next one, web space or hosting service. So this is an online service which provides space to store our websites. Okay, this is an online service. So here you can observe this web space is nothing but they will maintain a server. They will allot some sort of space to store our website. So this is also a server. So this web server will be maintained by these hosting companies. So we know a lot of hosting companies, right? Like GoDaddy, okay, Bluehost, etc., etc., Big Rock. So these are all the hosting companies who will provide some space to store our website in the server, so that we can get the web page. That means we can get the data from that particular web server, right? So web page, web browser, website, web server, and web space are hosting. Next, add-ons. Okay, add-ons or extensions. We can also call them as extensions. So these are the extensions to web browser which provides additional functionality. Right? So for every web browser there will be a lot of add-ons or extensions, right? So that makes the work easier for the client. So these are the extensions given to the web browser which provide some additional functionalities. Okay, so these are the add-ons which will be for web browsers. Next, client. So client is a computer which the end users used. Okay, so we are using, the users using the system is known as a client. That means which may get the access from the server. So it is a computer at user side. That means we are the users. Okay, to gain access to a data. So this computer will gain an access to the data, right? The next one, server. So server is also a computer. So that is similar to our web server. So just now we have seen. So web server is a computer with a high-end configuration, right? Similarly, the server is also a computer with a high-end configuration at a web server. Okay, at server side. Okay, server side. Computer which gives the access or response to the request given by client. Request done by client. So client will give the request, okay, to access the data. So server will respond to that particular request given by the client. So we call it as a client side and this is a server side. So this server will be having a web pages. So client will get the access of those web pages. That means ourselves, the user will access the data from the server itself. Next, DNS, domain name system. So actually every computer will be having an IP address, right? It may be a server or a client. So if the server wants, if the client wants to get an access of a data from the server, so the client should send a request to the server. So this request should be sent to the server with the help of the IP address, because IP address is the unique identity of any computer, right? So in order to remember all the IP addresses, it would be very difficult, right? So that's why the IP will be converted into some URL. Okay, so whenever the client sends a request, that means, for example, let us take some google.com. Okay, let us take some google.com. So the Google will maintain a server. So the Google will maintain a server, right? So whenever the client will send the data, that means whenever the client will enter this one, so the client should, so this is a client. The client should get a response from the server. That means we want to search some information about the web technologies. So once we for the first step we are using is opening the web browser, and immediately we are just entering that www.google.com and press enter. Automatically we are watching the Google home page in our browser. So how it happens means, immediately whenever the user enters this website, the first step it will be converted into IP. Okay, it will be converted into IP address. So through the IP address only we can communicate to the server. So what is IP address? IP address is the unique identity of this server. So this google.com will be converted into corresponding IP address. So automatically the request will be sent to this particular IP address. The request will be sent to this IP address. So here google.com. So immediately the home page will be loaded into a client. The home page. So the Google home page will be loaded into a browser which is available in the client. So that means we are requesting some data. The server is responding with that particular data. So what is the data? That is nothing but our home page. So immediately if you search for some web technology, again that data will be sent to the server. It will find different links or different sources which are available for the given keyword. So again the data will be sent to the client. So this we call it as a client server or request and response. Request and response. So this DNS is the conversion of URL to the IP address. The conversion of URL to the IP address is called the DNS. So without conversion, the client cannot be interacting with the server. So the first step, whatever it may be, you can open a flipkart.com, you can open a amazon.com, or you can open any other website. So the first thing is, so the URL will be converted into IP address, and then only the client is able to interact with that particular server with a given IP address, with a generated IP address. So for every website there will be a server. So the complete data will be maintained in that particular server. So whenever the client sends the website, that means if you enter a website, immediately it will send a request to that particular server and will get a response from that particular server. So that is called a client server and the DNS. DNS means a domain name system which converts the URL to IP address. So these are the minimum things we need to know in the web development, right? So conversion of URL to IP address and vice versa, and also vice versa, the conversion of IP address into the URL, right? Next, see, front end. Front end means whatever the visible parts or visible elements which are available to the user on the web browser is called the front end. So simply we can call it as an interface. Interface, that means visibility of content in web browser is called a front end, right? So whatever the thing we are watching in our web browser, that is called the front end, right? So here we are supposed to give inputs to the server. Okay, we are giving the inputs. So for example, take the google.com. So if you open the google.com, what will you get? So we'll get the title, I mean the company name here, and we'll get some text box here. And here we need to enter the search word. So some web technology, right? So this part is called interface. That means how the web page looks to the user, right? How the user is interacting. So that we call it as a front end. Okay, front end. So you will be listening about this front end and a back end for any application. So front end means nothing but an interface which is visible to the user. That means a client side visibility content, we call it as a front end. And similarly, backend. Backend means, so whatever the database, structure, etc. is called as a database. I'll explain you. See, for example, if you go with the Flipkart.com, and you want to search for the mobiles. Okay, so if you first enter the Flipkart.com, automatically will get a home page. And not only Flipkart, any e-commerce websites. Okay, any e-commerce website. So you will get a web page, home page, right? So there you can browse the mobiles. I just want to browse mobiles. So immediately after entering this one, we'll get a web page with all different mobiles. See, in this format. So every mobile will be displayed in this way. So actually this part is called front end because this is visibility. Okay, and how we are getting these mobile images and information? So that will be maintained in the server. So once you enter the mobiles as a keyword, immediately that will be the search word and it will search for this particular mobiles data in the database which is available in the server. So automatically from there we will get the information. So that database, so where the information where it resides is nothing but a backend. So there should be one application to link this front end to the backend. Okay, so that we call it as a backend. So that maintenance of data, retrieval, and posting the information. So everything we call it as a backend. So if you want to learn the web development, definitely you must be knowing the front end applications and the back end applications. So front end applications are nothing but our HTML. You need to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And coming to the database, backend application. So you can use a Python, Java, PHP, etc. There are a lot of applications. So if you learn both the front end and the back end, so you can easily develop websites, right? So front end and back end. Now the next one. HTML. HTML is a markup language used to create web page. So this is a markup language which will be used to create the web pages. That means in order to display the content in the web browser, we are going to use this markup language, HTML. So this HTML is also having a different versions, 4, 5, etc. etc. Now the latest version which we are using is HTML5, right? So the next one, tags in HTML. These tags in HTML are nothing but commands to display the content, or to execute, to display or execute the content, right? So HTML tags. So in the HTML, so we are going to use a tags. So these tags will be in between the delimiters less than symbol and the greater than symbol, right? So here we are going to use a different tags to display the content on the web browser, right? Next, attributes. Attributes are nothing but for every tag or for every element, there will be a number of attributes. Attributes are nothing but a characteristics, right? Characteristics of an element. For every tag, for every element, we are having a characteristic. For example, let us take some image tag. So this image tag will be having the characteristics, that means the characteristics of an image, that is nothing but a size, a width, height, etc., etc. All these are nothing but characteristics of image tag. So similarly, for all the tags, there will be a different attributes. So in HTML, there are some default attributes, right? So for every attributes are nothing but the characteristics of an elements or tags. You can also call it as elements or tags. So image is one tag, okay, one element, or we can call it as a tag. Next one, hyperlinks. Hyperlinks are nothing but the links which navigate from one page to another web page. So we have seen the website is the collection of web pages. So collection of web pages means there should be a link between one web page and another web page. So that will be provided with the help of this hyperlink. So these are the links used to relate one web page with another. One web page with another. Right? So one web page with another. So these are the hyperlinks. So we will be finding different links in a website. If you click on that link, automatically it will be redirected to another web page. Right? So that is this one. Next, static web page. Static web page. So static web page means, so web page, we know the content which is displayed on the browser, we call it as a web page. And static means a fixed content. It is not changing. Fixed content displayed for different users at all time. Okay, it's a fixed, the content is fixed. Okay, the content is fixed. So that we call it as a static web pages. Next, dynamic web page. So dynamic web page means the content will be changed according to different users. So content will be different at all time. The content will be different at all time. Right? A simple example which makes understand about the static web page and dynamic web page. So I have created one web page to display the time. Okay, so this is a static web page. So this is a browser, right? This is a browser, and here I have created one web page, one HTML page, so which displays the time as 10 AM. Okay, 10 AM. So whenever I click on this web page, it displays the 10 AM. So after 30 minutes, after 30 minutes, again if I execute, okay, after 30 minutes, if I execute, again it shows the time as 10 a.m. So this in this example you can observe the 10 a.m. is the fixed content at all the time. So at any time if you execute the code, so you will get the code as a 10 a.m. itself. That means a fixed content. So such type we call it as a static web page. See, whenever after 30 minutes, if you execute the same code and if you get the time as 10:30, so you have created or at 10 o'clock, and after 30 minutes if you execute the same code but you are getting a different content, that means at 10:30, so that we call it as a dynamic web page. So hope you understood, right? So static web page means a fixed content. Okay, the content will be displayed at all the time, anytime. But dynamic web page means the content will be displayed differently, right? So that we call it as a static web page and dynamic web page, right? So hope you understood this one. And the next, CSS. CSS is nothing but cascading style sheets. Cascading style sheets. And this cascading style sheets, the name itself indicates, so this CSS will provide different styles for the content which is displayed on our web page. Okay, web browser. So applying styles to the content of web page. So we'll be having different types of CSS. Okay, so you can refer, already I have uploaded the sessions on HTML and CSS, so you can refer to that links. I will post the links in the description, right? So CSS means a cascading style sheets, applying the styles to the content of the web page, right? Next, the next one, scripting. The next one is a scripting. So scripting is a programming language which will be interpreted and executed statement by statement. See, a simple thing. So in our previous sessions we have discussed about the difference between compiler and the interpreter. So these are the language translator. We call it as a language translators. So compiler is a process which will compile the code and then it executes. But interpreter will directly execute the code. There will be no compilation process. So directly a statement by statement it will be get executing. So whatever the languages follows this interpreter are called as a scripting languages. So that's why scripting is also a programming language, so which will be interpreted and executed as statement by statement. So for example, Python, if you consider Python, so Python will be executed in the interpreter. So Python will be comes under this scripting language. And if you go with the C and C++, so those are the compilers. First we have to compile the program and then we have to execute. So they doesn't comes under this scripting languages, right? So scripting language is also a programming language which follows the interpreter, right? Then client-side scripting. So again, the scripting languages are considered as a client-side scriptings and the server-side scriptings. Client-side scripting and the server-side scripting. So here, the scripting language used in client side. In a client side. So client side, In the client side itself, whatever the scripting language we are using, that will comes under this client side scripting. Example, so here we can use a JavaScript. JavaScript is a client side scripting language. Okay, and then similarly, server side scripting. That means scripting language used in server side. So at the server side, whatever the scripting language we are using, that comes under this server side scripting. So example, here also the example, Node.js. Node.js is one example for the server side scripting. Right? So whatever it may be, the scripting language means which will be the interpreter. So if the scripting language used in the client side, okay, to display the content of the web page, so that we call it as a client side scripting. So whatever the scripting language we are using to maintain the database or to retrieve the database from the server, that means at the server side, that we call it as a server side scripting. Okay, server side scripting. Yes. Next, JavaScript. This is also very important in the web development. So this JavaScript is used to get the dynamic content of the web page. So we have just now seen what is the static web pages and the dynamic web pages. So this JavaScript is used to create the dynamic web pages. Okay, so it is used to create dynamic web pages. Dynamic web pages. Right? So that means the data will be changed at different times. Next, metadata. This is also very important for any application. The metadata. Metadata means information about itself. Okay, so the data about itself. For example, if you consider a browser, any browser, then metadata for that browser will be the title, the head, etc. will be the metadata, right? So in order to write the code, so we can give the metadata also. That means we can give the title, we can give the head, or we can give some styles, whatever it may be. So the information about itself is called the metadata. And XML. XML is also a markup language which organize the content of the web page. Okay, it is also a markup language similar to our HTML. So markup language which is used to organize data on a web page. But here one difference is we can use user defined tags. So HTML uses the predefined tags, but here the XML use the user defined tags. That means the tags can be created by the user itself. Okay, we can create our own tags. Tag is nothing but a command, right? And the last one, which is a protocol. Protocol means a set of rules. Used to communicate with one computer with another computer. So in the internet we are accessing the data, right? So accessing the data means some sort of data is communicated between different computers. So that should be done with the help of some rules that we call it as a protocol. Okay, rules to be followed. To communicate one system with another or accessing the data over internet. We can simply call it as, right, protocol. So rules to be followed to communicate one system with another. So for example, if you want to exchange some files, so we are going to use some file transfer protocol, FTP, file transfer protocol. Okay, so if you want to exchange a mails, then SMTP, right? If you want to transfer some these web pages, so that is nothing but HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP. So that's why. So if you are using some website, if you are giving a website, so the first it will be HTTP colon, and here you are going to give the URL. So let it be google.com. So what happens here? HTTP is a protocol which transfers the hypertext markup language, and this is the domain name, so which will be converted into IP address, and it will be redirected to that particular server. Okay, and we are getting the response to the client, right? Hope you understood this one. So these are the basic terminologies, so you need to know if you are starting the web development. So if you know this one, definitely it would be very easy to learn the web development. So if you are learning the scripting languages, if you learn the front-end applications and the back-end applications, so obviously you can be able to create your own website, right? So hope you understood these basic terminologies, and if you are having any doubts regarding any one of these basic terminology, feel free to post your doubts in the comment section. Definitely I will try to clarify all your doubts. And if you really enjoyed my session, like my session, share my session with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much.